Hey, Brandt.
Hey, Jwow.
Look a little, very cozy in there with all that on.
I've got my retro Nike fleece zipped up to
It's
the
very
max.
nice. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, I didn't know that Bill Pope was the videographer for Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
How come he wasn't on Spider-Man 1, though?
No, yeah, he wasn't.
I don't know why.
But now that said, it's like a notable difference between the first Spider-Man and the second two and third. You know? Like the videography in the first Spider-Man.
I haven't actually watched in a long time, so I'm not. I don't know.
Should we watch it now?
Should we pause this right now and just
viewers?
go watch Spider-Man real quick?
Yeah, we might.
Okay.
That's
Okay, we'll be right back.
Sam Raimi, right?
Yeah, we'll be right back.
We'll just let's all watch together. Everybody press pause. No, just JKing.
No, let's actually I'll do a little montage of Spider-Man real quick, and then we can come back to it.
Just take a little gap. Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I'm surprised that you caught that. There is a significant difference between Spider-Man 1 and 2 and 3.
Yeah. 2 and 3 are very similar though.
Right. Yeah.
Which
I'm glad we took the time to go watch those.
watch those
real
3
quick.
films. Made it back before sundown. Don Burgess did the first one.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, you do.
Do I?
Yep. He was the cinematographer for Forrest Gump, Castaway, and The Conjuring 2, obviously.
Okay. So The Conjuring 2 is the only film this side of the century that he's done.
No, he did 42, that one about Jackie Robinson. He did Flight, that one where it started out with it was that Denzel Washington.
With Denzel Washington.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it started out with that very graphic sex scene, remember?
I do remember, but I more remember the upside down plane part.
Oh, I see. Some people had different takeaways from Flight. And he was also the DP for The Polar Express, which was a pivotal role for him.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines.
Okay, no.
You might know Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines.
Let's go back to Bill Pope. Honestly.
Yeah, so Bill Pope, he did Baby Driver, Alita Battle Angel, Men in Black 3.
I'm surprised he's not doing the third sequel to today's film, to this episode's film. Are you listening? It looks like you're listening to music or something.
What is
transcendental?
No, what are you talking about? Third sequel to this film? Is there
Matrix
another
4.
Matrix coming out?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
It's coming out next year.
Yeah, by that standard, it's coming back. It's coming out in
No,
2023.
I'm serious. They started shooting in March, and then they had to shut down immediately because of the COVID situation. But they're already back.
Dude, I did not.
I think they were shooting in Germany.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, it's exciting.
You know who one of my favorite actors of this generation is?
Keanu Reeves, yeah.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I'm serious. I think he slays.
Tell me some of his
huh?
Tell me some of your most appreciative roles done by Yahya.
The first experience I had with Yahya was...
Oh, is it Yahya?
I think so. It was episode 2 of this most recent season of Black Mirror.
Oh, okay.
The second experience I had was...
Which episode was that?
That was the one where they had the Mortal Kombat, but in the virtual reality.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was an interesting one.
Yeah.
I think you could watch Flight and then that one right after each other, and they really
coincide.
The same genre.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he was Dr. Manhattan in the Watchmen series for HBO.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's going to be Candyman in the newest Candyman release.
Oh, I'm actually pretty excited to watch that one. That looks pretty interesting.
It does.
Jordan Peele produced that, right?
Yeah. Monkey Paw.
It looks pretty interesting. Yeah. But hey, let's zero in on what this episode's supposed to be on.
Well, Yahya Abdul-Mateen is in the newest Matrix. That's why I say all of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I can understand how you'd be confused about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this week we are talking about The Matrix, the 1999 classic. The season we're exploring the 10 of our top, or not just ours, but in general, some of the 10
pivotal
favorite or pivotal
Yeah.
science fiction films of the 20th century, and this one comes in like right at the end of the 20th century, just before the end. So it's kind of nice that we get to do this one.
Yeah, I agree.
I think out of all of the films that we explored this season, this is probably the first one I watched out of all of them.
Oh, this was the first one that you watched in your life, you're saying?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm trying to think back of all the ones we've done. I think that's probably true for me also.
Yeah. Can you remember your first viewing experience with The Matrix?
Yeah. I was probably 11 years old. So it wasn't anything crazy.
You weren't like super into it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
11 years old.
Totally
that would have been
opposite
like
for me.
5 years after it came out. So it was still pretty fresh.
Oh, I see. So you probably already knew about The Matrix before you watched The Matrix.
Yeah. Because
Gotcha.
when The Matrix came out, it was like people were talking about it, you know? I mean, we all know that it's revolutionary. I mean, even still to this day, it's revolutionary.
That's interesting to me, though, because how much of a difference in age gap do we have?
You're 28?
I'm about to be 30 next month.
30, dude?
Yeah, I turned 30. Well, I guess by the time this episode comes out this month.
Will you be 30
like
by the time
weeks.
this episode comes out?
No, it'll be like a week and a half or something like that.
Are we in the future?
I guess so.
5 solid years.
So okay, 5 years. Yeah, because I watched it when it came out. So I moved with my family to the States in 1999, February. So the film came out.
The first American thing I have to do is go
You know what's funny?
see-
The first movie I ever watched in America was Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace.
Yikes,
And it
dude.
was
I'm sorry, that's
as
not
a
our
kid,
best work.
I was 8 at the time, and I enjoyed. I had a blast. I had no clue what the hell was going on
I'm
because
sure
I
you
didn't really
did.
know English back then. So
Yeah.
But I mean, I still don't really know English. But anyways,
What?
aside from that,
You know English.
my dad rented The Matrix when it came out on VOD, and we watched it. And I remember we had like a VHS player, and we could record like old tapes, like whatever was on TV over the tapes. We recorded The Matrix.
I think
from
that's
VOD.
illegal.
So yeah, it is. But
You talk to your dad in prison once a week. Oh.
I still have the tape to remember him.
It's framed in your room next to a picture of your parents and your brother, and you're like, this is all I have to remember them by. Oh no.
Oh
No,
gosh.
that's
no,
not
yeah,
funny.
but I do think that if I go to my parents' house today, I could probably find that tape. I think we still have it. But anyways, so yeah, that was my first experience watching the Matrix, and it was like totally. I mean, as a kid, you don't totally comprehend what's going on. I was 8,
Yeah.
so but I mean, I remember I cannot count how many times I've watched this film.
So when you watched it this most recent time, would you consider that you had like total recall when you watched it?
Yeah. Sure. No, this
boy.
most recent time watching it, I watched it with my wife. It was only her second time watching it, so that was a interesting experience, mostly because she wasn't paying attention.
Which is death if you're not. I mean, if you're watching The Matrix and not paying attention, you might as well just not watch it.
That's the thing. Like, things would happen, and you'd be like, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
No,
but
no,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you please.
I really appreciate The Matrix.
Yeah.
Watching it this past time, I've come to the realization that I think that this is my favorite Hugo Weaving performance.
Oh,
I think it's like the most.
wasn't he Elrond in Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, but
Is it Elrond?
how often do we see Elrond in Lord of the Rings?
That's true. I mean, there is that cool like battle scene where he like. But anyways, yeah, for me it's probably between this and V for Vendetta, probably.
Yeah,
Although V for Vendetta was kind of a weird scenario because there was somebody else acting, and then that guy left, and then Hugo Weaving for most of the film was just doing like voiceover for V.
I
So
see.
it's kind of a weird scenario there. So, but I mean, still, he. I don't know. I really thought that for you it would be Captain America.
Why? Why? Because I'm some box office whore?
Only because you mentioned Captain America last week when we were trying to figure out movies that Tommy Lee Jones was in.
Oh yeah. No, actually, I think Captain America is probably my least favorite Avengers movie.
Oh wow.
That's saying something because there's a lot of them.
I didn't know that he was in Happy Feet too, or he was Megatron in Transformers. Hugo Weaving
In all of the Transformers,
I
or
guess
just
so.
the first one?
In the Transformers film series. That's what it says here.
Really?
Yeah.
He's got such a distinctive voice.
Yeah, I don't remember recognizing. So he must have done something different there.
Yeah.
Then again, he says that for Agent Smith, he like lowered his voice because he felt like he was spending so much time with the Wachowskis that he felt like their voices were like imprinting on his character, and were like he was creating this like slower, deeper.
That's what I like most about his character is his voice. Like it's like the most diverse for him.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah.
I don't.
Mr. Anderson.
That was awful. I thought mine was bad, but I'm glad you like followed up after.
I wanted to set a baseline for everybody so they knew it. I think Mr. Anderson.
I was mentioning it to you a few hours ago when we were talking about recording this, and I'm a little bit nervous recording this. I really am. Like it's such a, like a beloved film for me.
We're 13 minutes in already.
But like just getting like really into full detail with this because like I mean this could be like a 3-hour conversation.
Yeah, it could
honestly. And then you factor in the sequels into this and the philosophy behind those that it could really go on for a while. But
yeah, realistically, a movie like this deserves like a 3-part series where we talk about like the special effects of The Matrix, the storyline development of The Matrix, and then like production in general of The Matrix, you know, because those 3 things, I mean, when you think about the storyboard alone, it was like 600 like
we were talking about
worth of
we were talking about what was his name? The Dune film that never was.
Yeah.
Jodorowsky's Dune.
The 14.5-hour Dune.
Yeah, that was all completely storyboarded, and here we got the same issue going on here with it was interesting because I was reading about it, and the Wachowskis had like they wrote the Matrix. They had been working on it for a while,
right?
And apparently they were actually comic book writers. I don't know if you knew this. It was a short stint, but they were doing it for a while. I guess that's a oxymoron. A short stint. They were doing it for a while.
It was a short stint, but it was a long time.
But one of their friends came up to them and was like, "Hey, I want you to write like a concept for a graphic novel, and just really go all out." And so this actually started as a concept for a graphic novel, and then they just kind of decided to go into screenwriting, and they wrote this film, a Richard Donner film called Assassins, with Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas.
Yep.
Which wasn't very good. Richard Donner actually had someone else come in. I can't remember who it was. Had someone else come in and did a complete rewrite of the film, of the screenplay. Excuse me. And the Wachowskis like tried to get their name off the screen, off the movie, off the film, and they weren't able to get their name taken off the film. But because of that experience, they decided they wanted to be directors, so they had more control of their screenplays.
Yeah.
So that's where it kind of came into. So they wanted to make The Matrix, and Joel Silver was kind of like their go-to producer at the time. I think he's still working with them actually, and he went to them, and they went to him, and he was like, "This is not going to get made, and I'm not going to be able to get you guys to direct this. Like, I can maybe make this film, but not with you guys at the helm. Like, you guys are, as a first-time directors, you guys are not going to be able to make this film. Like, it's not like nobody's going to put money towards this."
Right.
So that's where they came up with Bound. So they actually saw the screenplay for Bound and The Matrix and something else. I can't remember what it was. 3 films, 3 screenplays to try to get started. They did Bound. It was like a critical success.
It was
not
Assassins.
so much commercially. No, not Assassins. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think you're right.
They sold the 3 of them together.
Yeah. So so yeah, like Bound was a critical success, and not so much commercially, but because of the critical success that they got from it, they were able to kind of put their name on the directorial mantle of the Matrix,
Right.
and go for it. So I mean, it's looking back now, I feel like the Matrix is one of those films that like it's a miracle that ever got done.
Right.
With all these different concepts that all these different things that could have gone wrong. I mean, could you see this film be the way it is if it had another director at the helm? No way. I don't think so.
Especially not in that time. I mean, there was
No,
nobody
yeah.
ambitious enough to tackle something like this.
No. I mean even like if we're gonna talk just like about the fight choreography, like what it brought to like this genre, the action genre,
Right.
Even like not just sci-fi, but the
Right.
action itself,
Right.
it totally blew it out of the water. I mean, these guys, these like wire stunts and all that
Yeah.
didn't exist in Hollywood before this.
Yeah.
This was only done in Hong Kong, so much so that they had to go to Hong Kong to hire the people to do, like the team to help them with the wire stuff. So it's, I don't think another director would have thought of that. They would have just done really bland hand-to-hand combat stuff that you would see. You know, would probably have Sylvester Stallone as Neo,
Yeah.
and freaking what's his name? What's another? Arnold Schwarzenegger as
Right.
Morpheus. Can
Yeah.
you believe?
Jackie Chan. Even.
I mean,
Val
there's so
Kilmer,
much.
maybe.
Well, I mean,
Will
Val
Smith.
Kilmer almost was. Can you believe that? Well, like the studio wanted Val Kilmer as Morpheus.
I just can't believe that Will Smith turned it down.
Well, yeah, I'm glad he did though, because I mean, if Will Smith had gotten the role of Morpheus, then they probably would have gone with Val Kilmer if Will Smith had gotten the role of Neo, they probably would have gone with Val Kilmer as Morpheus.
And
just
what,
because
and what a movie that would have been.
No, that would have been awful because like who was it? I heard somebody say it before, like the way Will Smith was, especially that was like the height of his career. Bad Boys was
Wild
done,
Wild
like,
West came out around then,
no.
right?
Well, I think Wild Wild West came out after.
That's
I
why
think
he
Will
turned
Smith
it down,
says
right?
that.
Yeah.
Will Smith says that he turned The Matrix down because the Wachowskis walked in and were like, "We're gonna create a whole new like camera system for this, and everything's gonna go in slow mo, and the bullets are gonna go slow." And he was like, "I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about." He turned him down, and then he went and did Wild Wild West after that. So
Yeah.
terrible decision.
Right.
It's funny though because his wife ended up being in the sequels.
Right? I know. I didn't realize. So I haven't seen the sequels.
It's almost what?
Yeah, I haven't.
Oh
I
god.
try to keep my mind pure of anything that's not original
So
content.
you've never seen the sequels.
Never seen them. Never seen.
But I
any
mean, they
kind of
are original
animatrix.
content technically.
What's that?
They technically the sequels are original content. They're all made from the Wachowskis. It's still
No, I'm
the
saying
same
like I try to not pollute my mind with sequels. The first of this season, well, yeah, I don't count remakes because I'll watch that trash any day. But the first sequel of this season that I saw was actually just recently when I watched James Cameron's Aliens under your recommendation.
Hey, sidebar because I didn't know. You didn't tell me that you watched these.
I know I meant to tell you 2 episodes ago when we were going to talk about what we've been watching, but we
Bro.
get into it. I know. I'm sorry.
So wait, hold on. We'll talk about it at the end of this episode.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't
I'm
really
curious
like
to get
it.
your-
So
Well, I guess we won't talk about it at the end. Oh my god. Anyways, listen. I feel like what were we talking? We're talking about Will Smith.
I know I really
it's
charged
almost-
you with that.
Yeah, I hate it. It's almost like Will Smith was like, "Hey, I won't be in your movie, but if it's successful, I'll let my wife be in the next one." Like,
Yeah, maybe so. Were they married
but
then?
that's not true though, because or they were dating. I don't know.
I don't know.
But she actually, Jada Pinkett Smith actually, was trying to get cast for Trinity, and they even had like a screen test with Keanu Reeves, and they just didn't like mesh, so
Oh, really?
didn't work out. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Anyways.
That's
But
great double cray.
that's the other thing. So the studio wanted to cast Val Kilmer for Morpheus, and the Wachowskis had to take a meeting with him, much like James Cameron had to take a meeting with Arnold, even though he didn't
right.
want Arnold for the role.
Yeah.
But in that circumstance, it turned out good for the role. Like they ended up getting Arnold for the Terminator. But in this case, the Wachowskis went to meet up with Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer had like a whole sit down lunch with them and basically started the meeting off with like, "I read the script, but what about if we made Morpheus, the main character.
Yep.
What?
And they were like, actually, we don't know that you're the right fit for this.
Can you imagine? That would have been awful. Oh my god, I don't even remember the last time I saw Val Kilmer. I think it was. Oh no, what was that? Swedish. What was that Swedish movie with Michael Fassbender? He plays like a detective.
Guilt?
No.
Have you seen Guilt?
Iceman?
Guilt is
He's
good.
like a detective. I have seen Guilt. Shoot, what was the name of that?
I'll tell you right now.
Are you looking at it?
The Doors.
No, that's not it, dude. That's not.
Who
it.
is the detective?
Michael Fassbender was it? The Snowman. That's the name of the movie.
Oh,
Which it was a trash movie because the editing was awful.
that
But,
was weird.
Yeah, that was not a good movie.
I did not
I
like
think there
that.
was a good story there, but they just messed up. I don't know where they messed up, but it was
I gotta
bad.
tell you,
But anyways, Val Kilmer
those
in that film,
lifeless faces,
right?
that kind of stuff is what
Dude,
weird. I'll watch
so Val-
Hereditary on repeat, but when we get to lifeless snow faces, that's where I say,
Stop it.
count me
You're
out.
so dumb. You're so dumb. Listen, did you watch it?
The Snowman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was, what origin of country did you say?
I think it's Swedish.
I didn't know
that.
that. When I saw it, it was English.
Yeah, it was done in English, but it was based in Sweden.
Oh,
And the story is Swedish.
Now
like
I
the
get
book
it.
is Swedish and all that.
I
But anyways,
gotcha.
that's besides the point. Val Kilmer was in that movie, and he was so bad. He was so bad that they had to do voiceover with some other actor.
Why?
But with his face,
why?
because he was mumbling his words, wasn't like doing a good job. But
I'm
they
trying
kept
to think of a role where
like
Val
him in the
Kilmer.
film.
I'm trying to think of a role where he like played and they used his voice.
He was in Red Planet, and Carrie Moss was in that, which is kind of funny because The Matrix. But Carrie-Anne Moss.
Well,
I guess you could skip Anne, or is it a part of her first name? I don't know. Anyways, Val Kilmer in that the Island of Dr. Moreau, which that had its fair share of behind the scenes catastrophe.
what is
But
it? Well, you can't
the
say
Island of
stuff like
Dr.
that. And
wait, you haven't seen the Island of Dr. Moreau?
well, yeah, but you said behind the scenes catastrophe.
Yeah, it was apparently Val Kilmer's terrible to work with. He's just like an awful
Oh.
person to work with.
I
Like
see.
he's just you'll have a hard time working with him. Basically, is what I'm saying. But also the film starred what's his name? He's super famous.
Oh,
I hate when this happens.
Brad Pitt.
No. Shoot. What's his name?
H.G. Wells.
No, dude. When I say his name, like
Marlon
oh, yeah.
Brando.
There you go, Marlon Brando. Did you just guess that for real?
Yep, that was the third one. I had three lined up in the chamber. Brad Pitt, H.G. Wells, the author of The Island of Dr. Moreau, and then Marlon Brando.
I didn't even realize that you said H.G. Wells. I just know it wasn't.
Yeah. No.
Anyways, Marlon Brando was like, this is the end of his career, right? He wasn't like he didn't want to say his lines. Basically, it was just making up crap to say when they were shooting.
Was Marlon Brando in anything else? I'm having a hard time.
What do you mean?
You'll come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding.
Dude, Marlon, it's funny because Marlon Brando had like this crazy career, but towards the end there, he didn't make any good stuff.
I
Well, then
wonder
again, I guess-
if that was the pinnacle for him. If he was like, you know how some actors
Godfather?
you know how some actors take roles on and they're like, I don't think that I'll ever do anything better than this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, apparently in Apocalypse Now, he was like, he didn't read his line, like he didn't like memorize his lines.
Yeah.
And he had to be given his lines right before. Like they had an earpiece for him or something like that. I can't remember, or something like that.
Well, I didn't know that, but
Yeah, maybe I'm mistaken it with The Island of Dr. Moreau and not Apocalypse Now. But I know that there was some like oh, that's what it was. He like gained a ton of weight before Apocalypse Now, and he wasn't supposed to for his role because he's supposed to be a general. And he gained a bunch of weight. And what's his name? The dude that directed it. God.
we just watched that, dude. Badlands. Didn't he do? No, that was oh shoot, that was
Ford Coppola's.
dude. You ruined
Yeah,
it for
Ford
me.
Coppola. So Ford Coppola, all of the scenes that Marlon Brando is in, he's like drenched in shadow because he's so like fat and huge that like he didn't look like the character was supposed to be. So he's just drenched in shadow to not look fat,
He was stressed out by all the events from The Godfather.
I guess.
Anyway, we
we're
digress
supposed to
on
be talking about
everything
the
for the
Matrix.
last 8 minutes. Digression.
Oh,
All of that to
God.
say, Carrie-Anne Moss was in The Red Planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, one interesting fact that I do know about the sequels, even though I haven't seen them, is that they were shot in the same year back to back.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, apparently they weren't even looking at it as like two separate films. They were looking at it as like one story.
That's crazy.
So it's like they were shooting it like, going in, how like they don't shoot films chronologically.
Yeah.
So basically it was like that. They were going back and forth between those two films at the same time. Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. I mean, when you look at The Matrix, even it's kind of crazy the way they were looking. So apparently the first scene they shot for The Matrix was the rooftop shootout scene where like the famous, like,
Right.
yeah. So the bullet time part. So that was like one of the first scenes that they shot. The first scenes that they shot. The last scene that they shot, I believe, was. No, it wasn't the last scene, but one of the last scenes that they shot was the helicopter scene. Like when they're trying to get Morpheus out of the building. So like they shot that scene, like multiple parts of that scene throughout the entire production part. They just kept going back to that scene because it was just like
Funny.
different elements. They were going into the green screen area. They were going into because they shot in Sydney apparently, and it like they were on the rooftops of Sydney, and they shot on location in Sydney, but they also did a lot of like soundstage stuff. So
Now that you're saying that, one thing that really blows my mind is when they're shooting that helicopter scene and Neo is on that gun and he's just like railing that room.
Yeah.
And Morpheus just comes out unscathed.
Well, I mean,
The room is literally collapsing around him.
Right, but if you look at it, like the way Neo shoots, he shoots like in a circle.
Right, but
And keeps the
there's no
center
accuracy
untouched.
there.
Bro.
No,
he's
don't
the one.
bro me
he's
about
the one.
this. I'm telling
he's the one.
He's
bro.
the one,
Neo
right?
is the one.
That's another thing I have a hard time with because I know he's the one. I get that. But at the same time, you know who says that he's not the one?
Neo.
No,
The Oracle.
the Oracle
The Oracle. She.
is not the one.
Yeah, but the way Morpheus says it is that she told him what he needed to hear
Yep. So
for him to do what.
so
he
we're
needed to
okay
do.
with the fact that the Oracle's a liar.
I mean, she only told him what he needed to hear
Right, I've heard that.
to become the one.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So wait, have you not seen the sequels at all?
No, I try to keep
Okay.
my mind pure of any sort of
But like at all, not ever. Wow. I couldn't do that, man. So much so that I think every film that we watched this season, I've watched their sequels.
Yeah, I believe that.
Except
You've
for-
seen all 5 Terminators.
except for The Planet.
You've seen the prequel to Solaris. You've seen The Thing. You've seen
No, it wasn't a prequel to Solaris.
prequel to
It
The
was a prequel
Thing.
to The Thing.
Remake of Solaris.
Listen,
You've seen
except for Planet of the Apes,
2010,
I skipped
Space
those.
Odyssey Comes Home, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I saw that one a long time ago. Anyways, listen, no, I saw it this time. Anyways, what are we talking about here? Like, we're supposed to be talking about The Matrix, bro.
We're so apprehensive about talking about The Matrix, we've decided to just not talk about it.
Honestly.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, The Matrix. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Thanks for listening, everybody. And check out The Red Planet when you have time.
Oh man. I would go out on a limb to say that The Matrix is pretty damn perfect.
It's pretty
Like
what?
I don't pretty damn perfect.
Yeah, I think I would say that too. I think that the first time I saw The Matrix, I probably wouldn't have said that because I didn't fully understand it. But watching it this time, I completely agree. I mean, I can easily watch this with 1999 eyes and think, wow, this is groundbreaking. And
Yeah, I mean,
there's enough storyline there to keep us captivated and also enough special effects to really wow us, you know?
I mean, even aside from all of the new things, the inventiveness of this film, you could even look at the storyline itself. Like, we're at the brink of Y2K. Everybody not everybody, but so much of the world was thinking that like the world's gonna end.
Right.
And like this film comes out saying that like we're all living in this like simulation.
Yeah, it's crazy too that
like Y2K already happened basically.
Right. It's crazy that they felt comfortable enough to release that when it was like the world was literally quaking during that time, thinking that there was going to be a complete crash and economic downfall in just a few months from then, you know? And all of it was because of computerized takeover.
Right.
Which I mean, really, if you think about it, The Matrix probably hits because look at what future Earth looks like in The Matrix, right? Computers have taken over. We're being generated by these sentient beings and drinking for their sustenance or whatever.
I will say that like there's a little bit of everything in this film for pretty much anybody. I feel like yes, it's a sci-fi film, but I feel like you can be an admirer of any genre and like find something you love about this film.
Right.
Like I mean it's similar to what we said about Alien in the sense that like this is the world, the real world, not when they're in the Matrix, but the world that they live in is so lived in, and everything is all over the place. It's not like this clean, spotless sci-fi future kind of thing.
Right.
So it really does give you almost like it's not a horror film, but it almost gives you a sense of like horror, just like the plot of the film itself,
right?
And what it could be. Especially if you look at it today, like some of our like smart like people in the world, humans, are intelligent people.
I gotcha.
To name one would be what's the dude from Tesla? I can't remember his name now.
I got you, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
No.
Jeff Bezos.
No, dude.
Elon Musk.
Come on. Yes, Elon Musk. He believes, like, genuinely believes that we're living in a simulation. Only because, statistically, it makes more sense to be living in a simulation than for, like, the world to come into existence out of nowhere.
That's weighty.
Like, if, like, somebody like that could think that way, it's like... Am I grasping everything that I should grasp to even understand what the hell's going on in the world today?
I don't know if the sequels ever go into this, but it's obvious that that what we're seeing in the original Matrix is future of Earth, right? It's kind of like a Planet of the Apes style thing, but instead of apes, it's machines. Right?
Yeah, so I think the Matrix is almost like compiled out of so many classic films. Especially sci-fi films, if you look at it. I mean, if you look at what Terminator does with like, AI, we create this AI machine and then it goes on to do this and kills us and whatever. And then you could take like the element of Tron, like plugging into a game system. You're going into another world basically. So it's got that element of going into the Matrix. You're plugging into the Matrix. So I think there's like, I think the Wachowskis, they had that's the other thing. The Wachowskis had such a wide array of like influence that like they used to create the story for the Matrix. Like, I mean, they were into anime and kung fu and John Woo movies and all that.
Right.
And like sci-fi, Philip K. Dick, they even mentioned. So like all of these things that they like drew from and to create this one big amalgamation that created this like piece of like originality that we really feel is so original and totally out of this world, totally different than anything else we've seen in the past. When in fact they're just like drawing from these different places, these different wells to create something.
Right, which honestly is, I think it's a super. Excuse me. I think that's a super approachable way to make a movie like this, because what you're doing is you've got this massive red or blue pill that you want the audience to swallow, and it's like,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
How can we present this to them on a silver platter, for lack of a better term? So they're sprinkling in things that everybody knows.
Yeah.
So it's like this dystopian, loaded program of a future seems a lot more approachable to people, and people want to absorb that content, you know?
Totally. And then also the way the world was then with the break of the internet had been out for 10 plus years at that
Right,
point.
yeah,
But like
exactly.
it was just like building on and on. Technology was like, because I mean, the era, the 80s and the 90s, it was a time when like technology was like making leaps and bounds from where it was previously.
Right.
So it really is something that the time that this film came out is probably something that was kind of scary for everybody else.
Which
For me, it was just like, this is cool.
watching this film from even last week's episode where we talked about Total Recall. It's an extreme difference.
Yeah.
I mean, let's look at the decade before that. We look at 82's Blade Runner to 90's Total Recall, and there's no doubt that those were
It's
made.
not such a huge leap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now let's look at Total Recall to The Matrix, and it's just mind blowing. You know.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I can see previously, as far as like the technology that they used to create the Matrix, the only thing I can see that they can that kind of like holds up to what the Matrix did was Terminator 2 with the liquid
Right.
Terminator.
Right.
I can't remember
The T-1000.
Yeah, the T-1000. The effects they did for that, I think it holds up to what we see when Neo touches the mirror and then it kind of like goes through his whole.
I think so too.
System. It's the same effect, but what the Matrix does from there on, like everything else that it does, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's totally outside of what technology was doing before then.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that like the Wachowskis, this was their second film, and Bound, their first film, was like, I'm pretty sure this film was made for like 40 times the amount that, not 40, 4 times the amount that Bound was.
Oh yeah. What, they have a
And, like,
$60 million budget for this, right?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Which,
It's funny because you were mentioning Bill Pope at the beginning of the episode, and so the original cinematographer that they hired for Bound, they had such a small budget for Bound that they were really trying to figure out how they were going to shoot everything.
yeah.
And the cinematographer that they hired for Bound was like, I can't do this, and I don't think you'll find anybody who can do this and a crew that can do this for the amount of money you're asking. And Bill Pope came in and is like, yeah, I know some cheap guys.
Yeah.
And does it, and then he comes on The Matrix, and it's funny because the Wachowskis brought him The Matrix and were like, okay, so we're going from Bound, this like $6 million, maybe less, $6 million film, and now we're going into The Matrix doing this $60 million film. And Bill Pope was like, you guys, are you sure you don't want to go like to a $20 million film first and then like make another jump and
Right.
slowly get there? And they're like, no. And it's crazy because like the Wachowskis, you see some like behind the scenes footage for this film, and they look like kids, like the way
When
they're
they-
dressed.
right.
They're not really like professionals. They're just like going for it, and they're like, but they have a vision.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. Like they knew exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was listening to interview with Keanu Reeves, and Keanu Reeves was like, yeah, so with The Matrix, it was interesting because you would come in and the Wachowskis are looking for one specific shot. Per every scene, there's one shot that they're looking for, and they will spend hours looking for that shot. When they find that shot, everything else lines up. And it's like, they're just like, they really are like, I don't know. It's funny
Sounds like
because
Villeneuve.
yeah, I know, right? And it's funny because it's two guys, and they like, they're brothers. Yeah, well, they were brothers. I don't know. They're siblings. So they're siblings. So I guess maybe that's a little easier to understand since you grew up together.
Right, yeah.
So you know what the
Yeah.
other one's thinking. But at the same time, like it's two people with two different thoughts and two different like ways of thinking. But it's interesting because they almost like lean on each other, because I was watching behind the scenes footage, and one of them wanted to do one thing for the camera, and the other one, like while they're setting up, he's like, what does it look like if we do this? And then they do it, and then he's like, yeah, I think we should do that. And the other one's like, yeah, let's do it. like no conflict at all. They were just like, yeah, like
Dude, it's so funny though, because like, I don't know what it is about filmmaking, but even when we think about other like sibling partnerships like that, that's what you always hear. Like the Nolans,
Oh, yeah,
the
that's
Coen
true.
brothers, the Russo
Coen
brothers.
yeah.
Like
I've heard about that with the Coens a lot. Like
Yeah.
that they just like know, and not only that, but they also rely on each other on like what to do that the other one may know better. So it's just
Yeah.
like total faith in what the other's doing.
that, it's just
It's interesting.
crazy. Yeah. I mean, even Uncut Gems,
The Safdie brothers,
dude.
yeah.
The Safdies flow like liquid with each other, dude.
Yeah.
They are on a completely different wavelength as far as like understanding goes. It's like Josh and Benny completely get what the other's looking for, and when somebody presents something, it's like absolutely, let's roll with it.
Yeah, for sure. They're interesting ones to be looking out for too.
Yeah, I think so.
They've only done 2 films, right?
Well,
2 or 3.
I mean, Uncut Gems and Good Time, and then there's a couple of shorts sprinkled in there. But
Yeah.
I mean, even like Ari Aster, I would consider him up and coming still. And
Yeah.
he had like 9 or 10 short films before he made Hereditary, and a few of those short films gained traction. He made Hereditary, and that was a blow up. Like that was a profitable movie for him. But like,
I mean, it's
the Safdie brothers or Good Time was like their first thing.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
It's interesting, and it almost makes me nervous because The Matrix was like their, they wanted to do this thing before Bound even. So it's like it was one of their first like real projects, and it was like only their second film.
Right.
And it's still like I feel like it's the bar that they set for themselves that they weren't able to like totally live up to. Because I mean, the sequels to this, you haven't watched them, but the sequels to this, they aren't as good as The Matrix in my opinion, because The Matrix, and it's not that we mentioned how like in Total Recall, the payoff didn't match the setup. Like the setup was so much better than the payoff. Whereas you could say that, and there's, I don't know, it's just like they go so much into the philosophical areas of what the Matrix could be and like how it intertwines with like humanity. Which is interesting. It's very interesting, but it doesn't make for a good film because they just like delve into it and like almost reject everything else to like totally focus on that. Especially in Revolutions, the third film, and it's cool and it's really cool and it's really good to watch those films and digest them and figure out things with them. But I just feel like it could have been a more interesting film and it could have been a better film. You know what I mean? Like,
let me ask you this. In the sequels, do they go into any more information about what humanity looks like now? Because we get a small glimpse of that in the original Matrix. But
in the Matrix, all we see is the Nebuchadnezzar, right? But
right.
They do mention Zion, the city that's close to the core of the earth and whatever. So in Reloaded, the second one, you see Zion a good amount. You get to meet all these other characters in Zion, and then in Revolutions, almost the entire film takes place outside of the Matrix.
Oh, really?
It's almost entirely in the real world, both in Zion and outside Zion. So,
what is outside Zion? Just humans?
Just like like all those tunnels to get to the surface of the earth and the machine city and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really cool concept. The Wachowskis really made something really incredible and really original. But there is that whole like I feel like as a film, it doesn't live up to what like a film should do as far as entertainment and that give you that like outside of yourselfness that I would want from a film. It's really cool. It's really intricate, but it's almost too intricate. It's very difficult to like comprehend. You have to watch like multiple times to really understand the gist of it.
I can get that. I don't feel that way about the original Matrix. I think that I think they gave us just enough complexity to where it's super easy to absorb.
It's funny because you mentioned that like it's not hard to comprehend what the Matrix is and what it's trying to say. But most of the producers that were first reading the screenplay didn't know what the hell was going on. Like the Wachowskis say that they walked into a meeting with Warner Brothers and they were like, I think we got a really cool script here, but we don't really know what's going on. And it's like, it's funny because Morpheus, that's not his name. Lawrence Fishburne.
Morpheus.
Lawrence Fishburne says, like in an interview, he's like, all these people that say they didn't understand the Matrix, like, I don't know what they're on about. I got it totally fine.
It makes sense. It
totally makes sense. Yeah, it all fits into this really intricate puzzle, but it's not that intricate that it takes you months and months to really put it together. You know,
my
whereas the sequels have that a lot more. It's a lot more intricate.
my question is, what we're seeing in the Matrix as Earth is a future Earth, right?
Yes. So I think if I don't want to give you any like too much clues because I think you should watch the sequels.
Oh, yes, I
'cause
won't.
They're really
but
good.
thank you.
They are good in their own right. But I believe if I'm doing the math correctly, I think there's about 600 years from
What the Matrix
year
Earth looks like.
1999,
Okay.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So
It's
Yeah.
groundbreaking. It's a groundbreaking concept.
It's really, really good.
It's. I mean, we haven't even talked about the groundbreaking special effects, like
Right.
computer generated animation, and I mean the bullet time effect in general, which is used. I mean, all over the place today. All over.
Totally.
All over.
Matt, I mean, you could like just list off so many films that would not have been made if the Matrix, or at least wouldn't have been made in the same
Time frame.
way it was created, right? I mean, if you look at like some of the films are good, some of them are bad. Equilibrium, Max Payne,
Blade.
yeah. Well, I mean, Blade. I think Blade came out before that.
No, dude.
Yeah, dude. Blade came out in the mid '90s, I think.
Dude, Blade.
Yeah.
With
Also, it was a
Wesley
Marvel
Snipes?
comic before that, so
Huh?
it was a Marvel comic before that. But
No,
yeah,
I
the
know
concept
that,
you're talking
but-
about in the film, yeah.
1998.
No, I totally agree with you.
1998.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You were right. Okay.
No, yeah, there's a ton of films that just like, I mean, there was a whole. It's funny because I feel like before this, there wasn't that much interest into like bringing anime or like those like Japanese or like even the Chinese films, the Hong Kong films. Like the way that they create like the fight sequences, you
Right.
watch like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
You didn't see stuff like that in American filmmaking.
No.
Before the Matrix. The Matrix really like split the thing open, and it's just like wide open. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Especially like right there in the
that period. Yep, that
in the
2005.
early yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy.
just full
It-
of it.
yeah,
2008 even, if you want to stretch it that far.
Yeah, it's crazy that like after the Matrix came out, so many things started to be produced by that like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if the American like market just realized that's what people wanted in that period, and they were like, kind of like the sci-fi genre when like E.T. came out and then The Thing came out, and it's like all these things are coming
Right,
out all
yeah.
together. It's like people want approachable, friendly aliens. Let's make The Thing because that's what people want. People want teeth.
You got to
coming
think about
out
it too.
of
Like
eyeballs.
everybody was getting computers now at that time. Everybody was
Right.
starting to get like personal computers and
Right.
logging into the internet and seeing these things that were happening on the other side of the world that wasn't happening here in America. So I think I think it really is like it was one of those perfect timing things. I feel like with the Matrix, it was almost like ahead of its time in the culture that it set out to like
Yeah.
portray. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the variety of cultures that it picked from to create the Matrix, I feel like it really was ahead of its time. It was almost like they were on the cusp. And if the Wachowskis hadn't been there to like be the ones directing that and like making something like that, I think that what we would have seen is a ton of like short films and newer people coming into the fray, creating these new things that Hollywood wasn't doing yet. You know what I mean? So I think it was one of those things that was just like right time, right moment.
Yeah.
The right pieces
directors.
fell into
Yeah.
their exactly, everything fell into their laps just perfectly that
Yeah.
they were able to like create this. Because if it was another director making this, we would have seen like just like a bunch of like shooting gun films that
Right.
we had already seen
Yeah,
all across
exactly.
the 90s.
Exactly.
It just
Exactly.
wouldn't have been it would have been much less of a sci-fi film than The Matrix it really is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which, like we
It
said,
would've just
launched
been
an
a shoot 'em
entire
up.
new genre of sci-fi after that.
Yeah.
Computer sci-fi was what we saw next, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a crazy amount of like computer sci-fi movies that came out after that.
Yeah.
Just to name a few, like you were before, you said you had said like
Go ahead. I mean, Minority Report is one that was like very close to like right after that.
2000, right? 2001.
Was it 2000? 2001,
Yeah.
2002, something like that. So, I mean, there's plenty.
Dude,
if you even want to take it, if you want to take like, I don't.
is like direct influence of the Matrix.
I feel like there's a lot of influence there. I mean, but even if you go outside of the sci-fi genre, I think we can totally uncap that because I don't think we would have seen the Bourne films the way they were made,
Sure.
the way
Yeah.
if it wasn't for this, like the kind of fighting and the fights choreography in the Bourne films wouldn't have been done the same way.
The use
without the Matrix.
of mind altering drugs is also in
Well, I
the
mean,
Bourne
I don't know
movies.
about that because the Bourne films came from a series of novels from the 70s, I think.
So maybe the Bourne movies influenced the
Influenced
Wachowskis.
the Matrix. Yeah, possible. Yeah. I mean, all that to say that I don't know if I would have taken the red pill, though, because I really like steak.
I guess, yeah. I mean,
No,
seeing what
I love Cypher in this film, by the way. Cypher is one of my favorite characters. It's just like it's so easy to hate him
Rip in
and
peace.
in a good way. Like he's a great character, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy Cypher, the guy who played Cypher, he was in one of the movies that we most recently brought up, U.S. Marshal.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
He wasn't he the bad guy in that?
No,
too?
he was one of the.
No, he was a good guy.
Yeah, he was
the
one
bad
of-
guy was Colin Farrell.
In U.S. Marshal, dude?
In U.S. Marshals, dude. Colin Farrell was like the bad guy. He was a double agent, basically.
Dude.
Oh, dude, I just gave spoilers
What?
to everybody just now.
I thought Wesley Snipes was the bad guy. He was
No,
jumping
Wesley
off that
Snipes-
waterfall.
Right, but he was like more of the protagonist, right? He was getting away from the U.S. Marshals, but he hadn't done anything really. He was innocent.
Can we
And-
say The Fugitive? Hello.
And Colin Farrell, well, I mean, U.S. Marshals is the sequel.
Isn't it a sequel?
And Colin Farrell was like the U.S. Marshal who was like a double agent, basically.
Dude, are you sure? You
I'm 100% op.
You
I'm-
are wrong. You
No, I'm
are
right, dude.
wrong, dude.
I'm 100% correct on this
You
one.
are wrong.
I'm 100% right.
Dude, I am looking at it right now, and Colin
Yeah.
Farrell is not even in U.S. Marshals.
Stop it.
I'm serious.
Stop it.
I'm serious.
No, dude. I'm so mad if you're right.
What are you talking about?
Sorry, Robert Downey Jr. What?
Colin Farrell,
Dude.
dude?
I thought it was Colin Farrell in that role. I don't know why. It was young Robert Downey Jr. He must look like Colin Farrell to me.
Yeah.
young.
Prison does a
Robert
lot to
Downey.
people.
No, yeah. Robert Downey Jr. is the bad guy in that one. Sorry. I guess it wasn't a. I guess it wasn't
You know what?
a spoiler, but now it is.
I can see how you would think that. Young RDJ looks a little bit like Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell in Minority Report, even.
Yeah. Wow, dude. Wow.
Oh, there you go.
You're thinking of Agent Renfro.
Sure, I don't remember his name.
He was in Memento.
Dude, I forgot that that Cypher was in U.S. Marshals. Interesting. Hey, I thought that the music in this was really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I felt like the music was almost more of like a. I had a hard time sometimes picking out. Sorry, I just burped there. I had a hard time sometimes picking out the soundtracks from the sound design because the soundtracks felt so much like these like machine like engineered software
what you're
kind of
saying.
thing sounding things. But you know what's interesting is that like 90% of the sound used in the soundtrack was made from orchestral instruments, and it sounds totally like
computer generated sounds.
computerized.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Anyways.
That is incredible.
It's really, really cool.
I liked how environmental or organic the score for The Matrix was, like you're saying. I like that it kind of meshed into the machine sounds because I mean, it felt like we were entering The Matrix when the score came on. Like it wasn't like there was a score as much as it was like just the natural progression of what should be next, you know?
It's interesting you even mentioned that like natural sounding thing, because they were really going for that across the board with this film. So much so that like the set design elements in the film, like for example, in the Nebuchadnezzar, there are wires going across the Nebuchadnezzar, and some of them are red and some of them are blue. And what they were trying to do there is like represent like arteries and blood vessels and things like that, like kind of coinciding with like the human, like that there's machines, but there's also this element of humanity within all these different things. So it's really interesting how it's these things that you don't really pick out, but it's all there for you to like really pick it out.
I think that is just another way that they made it attainable or approachable to its audience. When you give it that humanity, when you give it that humanity, when you give it that humanity, people are like, yeah, wow. Christopher Nolan said about The Matrix, an incredibly palpable mainstream phenomenon that made people think, what if this isn't real?
You know what's interesting? You mentioned Christopher Nolan, because I totally see Inception as like having influence from The Matrix.
That is so funny. That is so funny, because here's what I thought first. Total Recall had direct influence on Inception. But I come from the camp now of believing that Total Recall had direct influence on The Matrix, and The Matrix had direct influence on Inception.
Yeah, it could be.
It's just crazy now that we've gone on this journey to see, you know?
It is interesting having like come from, you know, what was it? Planet of the Apes, 1968, I think. Like just coming through these decades, seeing all these films, seeing how the sci-fi genre has had this evolution, not only in the and some of the concepts in the plot, but like so much so even in technology. And I guess that's across all film if you really want to take a look at that, right? Because
and entertainment in general,
yeah. But when it comes to like what sci-fi can do as a genre, creating these like other worlds, that it's so much more than just like what you're shooting, right? Or what you're shooting with, but like these set designs and the complexity of the plot and like what you can create coming from like Planet of the Apes to now. It's like, it's so bizarre almost looking back.
What's so crazy is like
but seeing all that influence, because it really does come from like Planet of the Apes to then 2001 Solaris. You can really see like this like evolution in parts.
It's like there's two major subgenres or world building themes that all of these films kind of like influence each other off of. We see now, obviously, Planet of the Apes is coming from an adaptation. So that idea is coming from like literature, but we see a dystopian universe, like a dystopian future where the world has kind of gone to shambles. You know what I mean? And then there's space, and then there's dystopian future. Yeah. And then there's space, but it's like dystopian future is constantly evolving. You know, dystopian future is so it's so easy today to think, oh, you know, humanity has evolved from apes once. Now apes are going to evolve again, and humanity is going to be distraught. So simple in 1968 to think the only future for the world is another evolution of animal instinct, you know? Yeah. But now in 1999, we're seeing evolution of machine and humanity. And like, it's like there's one layer in Planet of the Apes, and now there's like 12 layers. Even in the sequels, like you say, it's like we're peeling back another layer of what could the Matrix be and what could dystopian future look like, you know? Even in Terminator, like it's easy to see that the Matrix had influence on the dystopian machine future that the Terminator had created, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what we see in Nebuchadnezzar and that kind of world in the original Matrix is like the oppressive dystopian future of the Terminator, and it's very similar.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
It's like one big Lego set. Sci-fi is. You just keep putting pieces on until there's
It's a pretty great genre. I don't know how people don't love sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see an audience of people who are looking for something that's like mentally like multi-layered, like the first reformed genre, or the, Hereditaries or something like that, just the ones that really cause people to think and feel. And sci-fi is fun, but the Matrix, like you said, influences across genres lines.
Really,
I mean, the Matrix causes philosophers, even when I read some of these reviews, like we had philosophers talking about the spiritual and philosophical influences that the Matrix could have on thought processes of humanity.
That's the other thing. It's not only was religion an influence on the Matrix across the board, you have influences there from Christianity to Islam and so forth. But then you, again, like what you're saying, it could totally create this whole different mindset in the people in the audience who watch it. Like, how come this can't be true? It could.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Elon Musk opened a whole church devoted to like
Scientology,
the simulation. What? No. Oh man.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's
sorry.
It's crazy.
Did you know that they won 4 Academy Awards?
I realize that now in this journey that I'm scrolling through the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It's incredible
best
for
film
a sci-fi
editing,
film.
best sound editing.
Yeah.
Best sound mixing, best visual effects. Which, if it didn't win a visual effects, I would be like,
well,
I don't know how it wouldn't win best visual effects.
I'd be curious to know what it was up against in that category for that year.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll tell you right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Heck, I'll tell you right here. Star Wars Episode 1 and Stuart Little.
That's it, just 2?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. One thing.
Yeah,
that was
by
said,
far, so much better.
One thing that was said about the Matrix was actually. Oh, who said it here? Oh, Simon Pegg. He said the Matrix was the excitement and satisfaction in sci-fi that the Phantom Menace of that year failed to deliver. It was like. He was like, everybody was expecting the Phantom Menace to be another New Hope or Empire Strikes Back, and the Matrix swept
That's
it up.
a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
A philosopher of his own.
It's funny that you mentioned Star Wars because I was watching an interview with Joel Silver, and he said that when they were trying to figure out how...
Joel Silver produced The Matrix, right?
The producer of The Matrix,
right.
Of how they were trying to plan out how they were going to do the visual effects for the Matrix. They went to all these big companies, including ILM,
right?
And all of them were like, "This is impossible. You are going to need to create a whole new technology to do it, and we just don't know how to even get started on that." And then they went to this guy, John. What's his name?
Pope?
No,
Bowden.
John.
No,
John Gaden, I think is his name.
John Bowden was RoboCop and Total Recall.
No, that was. Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He did all the visual effects for those two.
I believe it's Gaden, his name. Anyways, he was like, "Yeah, we could do this. Let's do it." And he was like this kind of like it wasn't small by any means, but he wasn't like this huge corporation with like power behind it, you know?
Right.
And he just went for it and just got this thing done. It's funny because they were shooting, so like they had the idea of how they were going to do these visual, like the bullet time, for example.
Right.
He had the idea of how they were going to do it. He thought he could do it, but he wasn't 100% sure. So when they went on set to shoot those scenes, they had like backup plans in case what they planned on doing wasn't going to work. But I mean, thank God it worked, because that's incredible what they did with the still images.
Absolutely.
To create that whole bullet time effect. It's incredible.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it is groundbreaking.
It's groundbreaking.
Yep.
Groundbreaking. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Hey, sound mixing. I was watching another interview with the lead sound mixer. I believe his name's Greg Rudolph.
Rudloff.
And yeah, sure.
Rudloff.
And yeah, anyways, close enough.
Yep.
He said, just to give an example, the scene where you see the baby inside that like red like crap that they live inside, that the human embryos,
the creation
they grow
chamber
inside the chamber, whatever. Yeah. So the baby, that scene that we see the baby on there, and you see like this like cool, like almost like an aperture, a thing that in the lens like close.
Yeah.
And it's like this gate that closes to keep all that liquid in.
Right.
So like in that little liquid, the closing of the chamber, just that itself, there was like over like 50 elements to create the sound that created.
Really?
Yeah, just like they were so meticulous about every little aspect of this film when it came to the sound design.
Dude, I got to tell you, when I think about editing a film, like cutting together,
Yeah.
that seems approachable to me. Like I
like
feel
the sound
like
design?
I could edit a film. Like
You know what's interesting, because
visually, when I think about sound editing a film, it blows my mind. Like I'll look up timelines from every so often, just to be like the timeline for James Bond movie, for instance, and I'll think, oh, that's not too overwhelming. Like I could cut all that together. Like I could see how to cut those together. But when I think about sound design, mind blowing.
I've done the same thing. I've looked at like timelines to see how they edit it together, and you'll see like 2 to maybe like 5 like video layers,
right?
And you'll see like
40.
Yeah, exactly.
40
like
layers
audio
of
layers
sound.
just everywhere. Yeah, it's crazy. It's how much the audio. It's funny. I was watching an interview. I watched a bunch of interviews for this film, and I was watching the interview of the film editor, Zach Steinberg. I don't know.
Steinberg.
Sure. And he says that the way he edits his films, he'll never put on the sound design on there when he's editing.
Oh, really?
He'll do a full
visual
like, first draft with just the visual, because he feels like the sound is always going to elevate the film. The sound is always going to make the film look better.
Right.
So he doesn't want to use it as a crutch unless he needs that crutch.
Right.
So like if it comes to a point when he's editing and he's like, this isn't totally working, I need something to help me with this here, that's when he'll lean on the sound. But otherwise he'll always try to edit totally just a film, no sound, because he knows that once he puts the sound design in there, it'll just totally elevate the film, and it'll be even better than what he already made it. So that's an interesting way to think about it, because whenever I edit anything, I always try to put the sound.
Right.
I do it all like little by little.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting all of the sound in until I get to the end.
Well, see, and that was one thing I was curious about. Like when we talked to that composer, like when we had that Uncut Gems episode.
Yeah.
It was like that. I was curious about how he approaches composition in general. Like if he is composing to a finished film product, or if he's just generating a composition and then that's cut into finished work. I find that and then I realized people just do it differently. Everybody
has their own way. Yeah.
All of that to say,
The Matrix, pretty good,
revolutionary, reloaded even.
I mean, it probably created a revolution even.
Yeah. Just reloaded people's trust in computers. Right?
No, yeah, it's the movie's all right.
A real Lord of War.
Hey, a question before we end this episode. This is our final episode of the season, and this is our 10th episode this season, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain here after we've watched some of these films that we have watched before, and some of these films that were our first time watching them.
Yeah.
What's your top 3 out of these last 10?
Yep, that's an easy one for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Solaris, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I think The Matrix is third.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it's a hard one for me. I have a hard time.
Yeah, I know, because you're a sci-fi glutton. You like all of them. You'll eat them all.
But I think you're right. 2001 probably would be number 1. I think Blade Runner second.
Oh shoot, Blade Runner. Oh, I forgot. Oh.
And then probably, it's either between No, it's the Matrix third. I was gonna say it's either Solaris or the Matrix,
No.
but it's Matrix and then Solaris. Yeah,
It's got to be the Matrix.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Matrix, what it did, and not only that, but like it's got this. I've lived life with Matrix. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's been there. I watch it consistently.
Yeah, exactly.
Every year, every other year, like
Yeah.
it's there. And
Exactly.
it doesn't ever like let me down.
Never lets you down.